The more they deny, the more the receipts confirm. I'd like to start off by saying Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Rachakodash. Welcome to another live lesson. You just heard the title of this one. The more they deny, the more the receipts confirm. And I was going through my favorites, and I ran across this site here. And the name of the book, the title of the book is The 10 Tribes of Israel. This is by an author by the name of Timothy R. Jenkins. And this book was written, the original book was written in 1883, I believe it was. And they are evidences of who the 10 tribes are and where they went to. Now, we've been speaking about this for years. There's all type of books, historians that have come out and confirmed the same things that we've been speaking of for years. Kingsborough, a series of books. I believe it was eight volume book. Kingsborough, I remember the name Kingsborough or Kingborough. Kingsborough, I think it was, and he wrote a 8 volume book on, the Israelites being on this side of the world. You had James Adair, which I have here, put it in the description box. History of the North American Indians, who was a Scottish individual, may have been a Jake that did trade with Gad and came to the conclusion after 40 years, I believe it was, that he was here trading with them, that they were descendants of the Israelites. And this book here, The 10 Tribes of Israel, by Timothy R. Jenkins, like I said, the original one I believe was 1883. He also came to the same conclusion, and he's giving, account of what, he encountered in others. So I was reading some of it. I was going to do more reading in it, but I said, you know what? Let me just jump on down. Here it says Wisconsin Historical Society. That's the society. So let me just jump on down, Daddy Rich, and do a lesson on it. 10 Tribes of Israel, the True History of the North American Indians. Showing that they are the descendants of these 10 tribes by Timothy R. Jenkins. Here it says 1883. Okay. So I was reading through it. I read the preface, and he pretty much is coming to that conclusion. Matter of fact, I'll read it. It says, many years ago, the attention of the compiler of the following pages was first called to the subject by hearing a lecture delivered by a highly educated Cherokee Indian on the manners and customs of the various Indian tribes of North America. And we've been saying for years that the 10 tribes came over here to the Americas because these individuals that deny that the so-called North American Indians, Seminoles, so-called Mexican Indians, and the rest of the tribes over here, they deny that they're Israelites. But they've never been able to explain any of the evidence that's been brought up that they are Israelites, and they have never been able to break down a land where never mankind dwelt. It says, during the course of his remarks, he stated that when he came to study the Hebrew language, he was astonished to find so much of his own language that was pure Hebrew, dealing with this Cherokee Indian. And after enumerating the various words of his own language that were Hebrew, he found them to exceed 50, and said he we were taught this by our ancestors, and they received it from their Hebrew ancestors, the 10 tribes. And this is why one of the main reasons that once Esau conquered Gad, especially Gad, once they conquered them, they started to put the children into boarding schools and started to strip away their language, started to strip away their customs, started to strip away any semblance of them, connecting them back to their heritage, because they knew that they were Israelites. That's one of the main reasons. You know, I mean, the main reason was because it's prophecy. You know, like the scriptures speak about everything is, you know, revolves around prophecy. When we go to Genesis 49 and 19, it says Gad. Now Gad is the name of the tribe of the so-called North American Indians. The name Gad goes back to the Hebrew word Gad, which means troop. Gad, a troop shall overcome him. Right. And how did the so-called North Americans get taken down? By what's known as the cavalry. Cavalry is a troop of Edomites on horseback, you know, and, you know, regular soldiers that took Gad down, because that was the way that the Lord said Gad would be taken down. The game changer in the whole battle was the Gatling gun. Once Esau got the blessing of the Gatling gun, then this is how he was able to really totally decimate Gad, because Gad was giving them devils hell on the battlefield. You know, there are accounts. I'm not sure where it is. I heard about it. I never knew exactly what book it was in, or if it was a documentary. I believe it was a book. I'm not sure. If any of the apostles know, maybe if, you know, if they wouldn't mind, you know, mentioning it. But this is what I heard, that when Esau would fight Gad, they would shoot at Gad, and Gad would dodge the bullets, and they'll keep dodging the bullets and come all the way up to them and kill them, you know, delete them, you know. So this is what I, you know, have heard, and I believe that. And this is why Esau, they couldn't handle, you know, Jake over here in the so-called Americas. That's why they had to come up with the concoction of the Gatling gun. And the Gatling gun, which is a sword, you know, it's a an extension of a sword, you know, which is a gun. You know, that was their blessing, you know, and the Lord gave them that blessing just to be able to take down the so-called North American Indian. But he said, but he shall overcome at the last. All right. So that's why I believe that they put the Gadites into these boarding schools, the children, to strip them away from their heritage, because they knew there was too much evidence that they were Israelites. You know, so here it is. You have a nation of people, Edomites, coming to this side of the world, establishing, you know, a society on conquered lands, and they can't have these people calling themselves Israelites, you know, or knowing anything about that heritage, if they're setting themselves up as these Christian Judeo individuals, you know. Because how does that work? You setting yourself up and your foundation up on somebody else's name and somebody else's principles. But leave it up to the devil. Preface. And furthermore, he stated that he was as firmly convinced that the Indian tribes of North America were descendants of the 10 tribes of Israel as he was of any other fact. This statement induced us to examine history on this question, and we have found many facts corroborating the testimony of the red man of the forest, which is not red. They called Jake, the so-called North American Indians, red man, because they used to paint themselves, war paint. They were not red. They were different shades of brown. Though differing from some other written writers on this subject, we have the testimony of a number of the most eminent men of America to sustain our position. The author. We're going to jump down to the book here. The 10 tribes. And I put this in the description box in case anybody's interested, you know, to get it. I think there's another page where you might be even able to download it. But then again, I'm not sure. This is the new format. You can go back to the classic Google books, and I believe from here you might be able to download it. Anyways, it says the 10 tribes. The following is taken from the Apocrypha. And this is why that devil Columbus knew exactly where he was going. Now, there were uh, there was some evidence. I don't remember who it was, but at the time, the Pope at the time, prior to, Rodrigo Borgia sitting on that or taking over that so-called throne of the Vatican, the Pope prior to that was looking for more riches, because remember, you had, I believe even up until that time, you had the Crusades. I don't remember. I'm not sure what year the Crusades ended. But I believe he was still trying to gather money for that. Salakia. Okay, no, they were way done by then. 1291 A.D. That was the last crusade, they call it the fourth. No, it's even further than that. So 1291. So it was some war he was fighting that he needed more money, and that's why. And they knew about this side of the world, and that's why this devil Columbus came over here and was certain that he was going to make it over here, because he already had the inside scoop. Plus, he had the Piri Reis maps, and other maps that were given to him by his father-in-law. And he was also trained by the Portuguese navigator Henry the Navigator, I think he was called, something like that. So he had knowledge of this side of the world over here, and that's why he came over here, to get the riches. And he also, in the movie 1492, what was that? Something about paradise. I can't think of the exact name of the movie, but it was called 1492. It starred Pierre Depardieu. I never saw the other one that came out the same year, which was another Columbus movie. I wish I could. I'm going to see if I could look into seeing if I could see that one, because I don't think I ever saw that movie. But in that movie, Paradise Lost, that's what it was called. Christopher Columbus, right, was in front of a priest, and the priest was asking him, what are you going to tell the crown, in so many words, what are you going to tell the crown in order for them to fund your excursion? And he told him, the something of Tuscany, and he was giving them, different navigators and their evidences of this land being on this side of the world. And then eventually he mentioned Esdras. Now, Esdras is the Greek way of saying Ezra, okay, which is a prophet. And he read that, and he knew that these Israelites were on this side of the world, because he understood that this was a land that never was inhabited by man, and that's why he was so sure. So it says the following is taken from the Apocrypha, 2 Ezra 13, 40 to 45. And we go through this from time to time. We go through the history. We've gone through the history of the breakup of the nation of Israel that was broken up into two kingdoms. You had the southern kingdom, which comprised of 3 tribes predominantly, which was Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. Then you had the 10 tribes, which was headed by Ephraim and the other tribes, which we call the so-called Indian tribes, because they were all Indian. We say Latino and Native American, but they're all Indian tribes. All right. It says, to show when the 10 tribes left the eastern country to come to a land not inhabited by man, and that's the key there in that chapter. That they went to a place where never was inhabited by man, and it said that to get to that place, it took 1.5 years. Now, how did they know about that land? Well, because the um it's like I'm just trying to find his precept. King Solomon had a navy. He also had Hiram, which was was it Canaanite? I believe he was a Canaanite. I gotta brush up on that again. But King Solomon, as it says here in 1 Kings 9:26, and King Solomon made a navy of ships in Ezion-Geber, which is beside Eloth, on the shore of the Red Sea in the land of Edom. Right, because that land down there was part of the land of Edom too. That's why it was being always fought between Judah and Edom. I'm trying to see. Oh man, they were first 400. There's another verse in here. Just bear with me 1 second. All right, so you know what? Let's just go to the 10th chapter because there's another point over here. Here we go. This is 1 Kings 10 and 21. It says, and all King Solomon's drinking vessels were of gold, and all the vessels of the house of the forest of Lebanon were of pure gold. None were of silver. It was nothing accounted of in the days of Solomon. Why? Because this was a prelude to the kingdom of heaven and how great, the kingdom is going to be. That was just like a little taste for 40 years, right? So they had no vessels, no drinking vessels or any type of vessels of silver. It was all gold. It was straight up opulent, kingdom. That's why when the Queen of Sheba came to speak with King Solomon and to prove him, and by questions, when she saw the servant of King Solomon opening the door, she thought that was King Solomon, And she said when she spoke to him, she said the half wasn't told to her. She pretty much, like just was in such awe, that she, surprised she just didn't faint. It says, for the king had at sea a navy of Tarshish, right? And this is another. So you had Ezion-Geber, right? Just bear with me. Let's go to images here. Bring this back over here. As you can see, I'm trying to find a good one to give you like a. Let me see this one here. Let's try to get a. As you can see here, this is down here. This is the Red Sea. This is part of the Red Sea. The Gulf of Suez and the Gulf of Aqaba, which is part of the Red Sea, but they break out into gulfs. Then, as you can see here, Ezion-Geber, which was at the northernmost part of the Gulf of Aqaba, right up here. And this was a part of King Solomon's navy. His navy, he had a navy here that would, go out and do what they had to do. Then he also had a navy in. Let's see if it'll give it to us. Why is it not typing? Right here. You have a map of Tarshish. Now Tarshish, as you can see here, this is Spain, as you can see there. This is I forget what strait this is here. I forget the name of this strait here. Strait pretty much in navigational terms is a body of land. I'm saying a body of water that comes between two lands and is kind of tight. That's where you get the word strait from. Strait is a position of difficulty. But now you have here Tarshish, which is Spain. So King Solomon also, he had a navy here at Ezion-Geber, down by the Red Sea, and he also had a navy over here in Tarshish. All right, so you can get a visual of what it's speaking about. So it says, for the king had a navy, in the 9th chapter we read about Ezion-Geber. For the king had at sea a navy of Tarshish with the navy of Hiram, right? Because Hiram had, that's what I was trying to find. I think that was in the 9th chapter. Spare with me 1 second. I know if I type it in like this, it's going to take me forever to find it, but never know till you try. Right here, boom. All right, let's see. Here we go. This is why I wanted to go here first. 1 Kings 9:27. And Hiram sent in the navy his servants, shipmen that had knowledge of the sea. See, they had knowledge of the sea, and these were Phoenicians, which are Canaanites. All right, with the servants of Solomon. So he actually, I should have just read down. And King Solomon made a navy of ships in Ezion-Geber, which is beside Eloth on the shore of the Red Sea in the land of Edom. And Hiram sent in the navy his servants, shipmen that had knowledge of the sea, with the servants of Solomon. Yeah, so the Sidonians or Phoenicians or Canaanites, they had knowledge of the sea, because when you navigate in the sea with ships, there's a particular current, and there are certain waters that you don't want to go through, certain areas you want to try to avoid because of storms and different things of that nature. So they had knowledge of all of that. So they've traveled everywhere on the seas because that was the gift that was given to them. So when we read over here in 1 Kings 10:22, for the king had at sea a navy of Tarshish with the navy of Hiram. Once in 3 years came the navy of Tarshish, bringing gold and silver, ivory and apes and peacocks. Now, when you read about the account in the Apocrypha, 2nd Ezra, which you're reading here, right? It says, right down here, it says, these are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea, which was the Ephraimite king, the king whom Shalmaneser, which was the Shalmaneser the fifth, the king of Assyria, led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, and so came they into another land. Now that other land they came into was the land of Assyria. Hamath or Halath or something like that. When you go back to 2 Kings, the 17th chapter, it gives you the name of the regions of those lands where they were at. It says, but they took counsel among themselves while they were in captivity, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen, which were the Assyrians at the time, and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt. And that was over here in the Americas. And how did they know about this land? Because of King Solomon. They knew about this land because they knew the history. All right. And that's how they knew about it. They knew about the navy that King Solomon had. They knew about the Sidonians. They knew about their travels. They knew about them coming to a particular place in the world where there was a particular land that was rich with minerals and resources, an arable land. Straits of Gibraltar. I was going to say that too, the water, brother, Tower of Strength. And 12 tribes of Israel. I was going to say that Straits of Gibraltar, but I wasn't sure. All right, so that's how they knew to come to this side of the world, the arable land. All right. For through that country there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half. You see? And that's why it took the navy of Hiram and the navy of Solomon 3 years to go to this particular land, and come back and bring these things. All right. So we're going to get back to that. So let's go back. It says, and the same region is called Arsareth, which Arsareth is the Hebrew for Arsareth would be another land. All right. Arsareth, another land. Akar Arataza, I believe it is. It says, now what are we to learn from the foregoing history? So now they didn't go into the whole of that, so we're gonna get it so we can continue reading to show you that the reason why it took them 3 years to get there and back. So let's go where we left off. The same region is called Arsareth. Then dwelt they there unto the latter time. I'm sorry, we did read it. I skipped over it. For through that country there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half. See, so it took a year and a half to get there. And then a year and a half to get back. That's why you had the 3 years here in 1 Kings 10 and 22. Once every 3 years came the navy of Tarshish bringing gold and silver, ivory, and apes and peacocks. And this is why that devil Columbus came over to this side of the world, because he thought he was going to get super rich. But he didn't know exactly where these lands was. He knew that this was a region, but he didn't know exactly where all of these different places were, where, you know, these Sidonians were getting all of this from. Now, the word peacocks, the peacocks are native to India. All right. But when you look at this word peacocks here, it's not talking about the actual peacock. The word there is thakayayun, thakayayum. All right. It says peacock, baboon, ape, but it's really not talking about a peacock. It's talking about something called the gallo pavo. The gallo pavo are where you get the word pavo in Spanish is turkey. All right. Let's see if I could find a peacocks. It's the answer. Be interchanged. From this, let me see if to this to Sanskrit, from the domestic name of the bird comes from the Greek. Also pavo. See right here, pavo. Pavo is Spanish for turkey. And turkeys are native to the Americas. There was another one that said gallo pavo. But, you know, I don't, let me see something. Let me see if I go to the, nope, that's the root word. Let me see, it says here, si thakayayum, related, thawa, let me see something. Nah. Yeah, but there was another, I'm not sure if I read it in the book form. It said gallo pavo, but nevertheless, also here pavo is turkey. Now, a turkey is native to the Americas. Wild turkeys, melagris gallo pavo. See, gallo pavo. There was another one that said gallo pavo, but I don't remember exactly where it is. Are native to the eastern and southwestern United States, central and northern Mexico, and parts of western Texas. They are one of only 2 domesticated birds native to North America, along with the Muscovy duck. See, so this was what they were sending back. These were the exotic birds that they were sending back. But, you know, in the scripture they call it peacocks. All right. So this is what they were native to. So once every 3 years, they would send these, these gifts back and forth, because these were considered, you know, exotic creatures. All right, along with riches, and then this is why that devil Columbus came to this side of the world. Now, as we read on here, right, it says, "Then dwelt they there unto the latter times," meaning that the 10 tribes that came here, they dwelt here unto the latter times. What are the latter times? The times when so-called Christopher Columbus came over here. They started bringing the slaves over here, which were the 3 tribes, mainly the 3 tribes of the southern kingdom, over to the side of the world in slavery, to fulfill prophecy of the slavery, and also to fulfill prophecy of gathering together the whole nation of Israel over to this side of the world. All right, and that's what happened. So when Judah, Benjamin, and Levi were brought over here, that was the beginning of the bringing back together of the whole nation. And now when they shall begin to come, meaning when the 3 tribes that come to this side of the world, the highest shall stay the springs of the stream again, right? Because, the Lord held back and allowed, Jake, or the southern kingdom, to come over to this side of the world to be joined back to their brothers. And you see it now. This is why I believe that Esau is making it so hard, and bringing that dissension between, Judah here in America and the so-called Latin tribes coming up here, which they call migrants, because they want to keep that separation. But what they don't understand is that the Lord is he's destroying the breaches between the tribes, and the ones that are supposed to get together, that are part of the elect, are going to get together. But you're always going to have that division. It says that they may go through, therefore sawest thou the multitude with peace. And the multitude with peace are the elect of the nation of Israel coming back together, being built up again, which are the tabernacles of David, which were falling and in decay, and they were brought back together. All right. And then he said, "But those that be left behind of thy people are they that are found within my borders," right? And that's why they had to be brought over to this side of the world eventually, to come back together with the other tribes that were here in America. Okay, so let's go back to that country. Okay, it says, "Now what are we to learn from the foregoing history? First, we are taught that they understood the geography, right, which they did. That's why they came over to this side of the world. So they had, this is the reason why they had the council. The 10 tribes had a council. Look, we got to get the hell out of here. These heathens are terrible. They're mistreating us. We catching all kind of hell. And the reason why we catching hell is because we didn't keep the law, statutes, and commandments of the Lord. So this particular land that King Solomon was going to, we got to go over there and set up shop, and that way we could keep our law, statutes, and commandments and please the Lord, so on and so forth, which those were the intentions. But when they got here, you know what happened. Of the country and the distance they dwelt. And the distance they must travel in order to get to this land where no man dwelt. Right, which was 1.5 years. And they understood that because King Solomon's navy, it took them 3 years to go to the place, grab the stuff, and come back. It says, "And second, that there was no country in the east, but what was more or less inhabited by man, and consequently America was the only country at that time known that was not inhabited." Right, because you have some individuals that try to say that the 10 tribes went to a place called the so-called land that was not inhabited. Some of them say it was over there by the north of Armenia, up into like around the area of Georgia, what used to be called Georgia, Russia. Let me see something. Just bear with me. All right, so we have here this one seems, let me see something. can't do nothing with that. It's a little too big, which is good, but it's a little too obtrusive. Let's see this one here. Yeah, this one is got too many different languages on it. Trying to find a decent one. Oh, let me see this one here. See, the only thing with this one, it doesn't have. This is Turkey, Armenia, Georgia. Then you have up here somewhere the Caucasus Mountains, right? So they're saying, some people are saying that the tribes went up here. So you mean to tell me that from Assyria to here, it took them 1.5 years to get there? You know? No, they knew exactly where they were going. And that's why they took that counsel among themselves. See, I like this one here because it gives you the Caucasus Mountains. And that's the Caucasus Mountains. Right? This is Georgia. It used to be formerly Georgia, Russia, part of Russia. Then you come down, that's Armenia, Azerbaijan, Yerevan, see Turkey right here. And then you come further down to the southeast. You'll see Assyria there. Matter of fact, let me see if I type in Georgia, Armenia. See, that's a serious state, but they're not giving me. Let me try. Let me get rid of Georgia, see if. Yeah, it's not allowing me to get a good map just to give you an illustration. It's this right here. Yeah. So that's what they're saying. Some accounts are saying that, okay, we can get rid of this and that. We don't need that anymore. They're trying to say that, the Israelites, the 10 tribes ran up into the area of Georgia, Russia. In that area, that's, where the 10 tribes are at, blah, blah, So it doesn't take 1.5 years to go from Assyria to that land right there. All right. So let's go back. The North American Indian. The following is from J.J. Mombert's History of Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, page 68, being an exact from a letter written by William Penn to the Committee of the Free Society of Traders in London, England, 1683. He states, of the origins of the North American Indian, I am ready to believe them to be of the of the Israelite race. I'll put it like that. I mean of the stock of the 10 tribes. And that for the following reasons: first, they were to go to a land not planted or known. See, so they're not only giving you theories or synopsises or, they're giving you facts. They're giving you, interactions. They're giving you customs that these people that they encountered, that they called North American Indians, were doing. Which, to be sure, Asia and Africa were, if not Europe. And he that intended that extraordinary judgment upon them might make the passage not uneasy to them, as it is not impossible in itself from the easternmost parts of Asia to the westernmost parts of America. In the next place I find them of the like continents, and their children of so lively resemblance that a man would think himself in Duke's place. Right, because you had, the Israelites, which are lively. Isn't that what the Egyptian handmaids told Pharaoh, that the Israelite women are not as the Egyptian woman? That they're lively. Let me see something. I'm not sure what chapter that is. But it might be the first chapter. Oh boy. Where it says that the Israelite women or the Hebrew women were lively. Right. That's like the brother said. That's a good point. 2 Ezra 13:44, for the Most High then showed signs for them and held still the flood till they were passed over. Yeah, because there were a lot of storms, and if you didn't know the currents or the navigation to get there, you can get jacked up. It's a good point that it wasn't land but water they had to pass it, right? And that's the point we're making. But see, these guys, because it doesn't say ships, Ak. It doesn't say, it never mentioned the word ships in there, so they didn't go by ships. But what's the water for? Why did the Lord hold still the floods of water for them to pass through? Because you had a lot of storms out there, cyclones, then you had currents. When you look at a map of currents, which Elder Apostle Gabar did a lesson on it years ago, you'll see, Tawada, my man, Tawada, bro. Exodus 1:19, and the midwife said unto Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women, for they are lively and are delivered ere the midwives come in unto them. That's right, beautiful. And then the brother Tazayar Machazah also put the scripture in there. The brother from DC put it also there. Sayonara. All right, so bottom line, that's the point. Now, another scripture is Matthew 5:13. You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt have lost its savor, wherewith shall it be salted? So Jake is the salt of the earth. So these devils, came to the conclusion that the children of these Israelites were very lively. They were so lively that you would think you were in a Duke's place, or Berry Street, London, right? Because they look, we're royal people, man. We're royal people. And the royal people carry themselves as such. Why the fuck do you think Jake, in the destitute state that they are, they always want to live, they want to keep up with the Joneses. You could be a dirt poor, have pennies in your pocket, but you styling. Your stomach is growling, hungry than a mug, but you shining, you looking good. That's a Jake trait. That's why them boxers and celebrities and all that's why they always fucking broke, because they want to live that life. This guy was a MC Hammer. I think he was importing marble from Italy or something like that for his mansion. Jake likes to live it up. Why? Because that's that royal spirit. That's that royal status that Jake had at one time. And they still want to live that even though they're in the low condition. That's why the first thing Jake does when they get money is what? They splurge, on everything. They splurge on looking good. They're not content with 1 or 2 cars. They got to have 40 cars, 50 cars. They got to have all kinds of homes, and the homes got to be decked out. They got to look good. You got to have, indoor pools and basketball courts and theaters, and all this stuff in there. And they can't just have a regular, they got to have waterfalls coming out the ceiling. You got to have, marble, and, you got to have that alpaca. This is $10,000 alpaca. You don't scrub that. You blot that shit. They got to have all the best, because you got to get the best. Deuteronomy 7:6, for thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy power. The Lord thy power hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself above all people that are upon the face of the earth. There's no people like Israel. And these devils recognize that. They see that. And that's why they don't like Jake, because no matter how far down they put him, no matter what condition they put Jake in, Jake will always make the best of that situation. Exodus 19:5. Now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant, then you shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. And you shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and an holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. Let me see. Let me just type in the word royal. Okay. That's bad right there. Genesis 49:20. Out of Asher his bread shall be fat. Asher are the so-called South Americans, Indians, and their land is plenteous. And he shall yield royal dainties, right? Because they have, when you go to their different feasts and stuff like that, they're cooking like what's that? In king's houses, that king's food, which is mostly carbs, and see, royal is malak, king, mostly carbs and meat, acidic shit. That's why Jake's diet is terrible. No matter where you go to them Brazilian restaurants, they got nothing but soul food, with a Portuguese/Spanish accent, So let's go back. It says, when he seeth them. But this is not all. They agree in rites. They reckon by moons, because that's how, you would count. The moons were set up for a count to keep track of time. And that's why it says, and the evening and the morning were the first day. You see? So when the moon was created, the sun and all that, the moon was set up and established as the timekeeper, the beginning of the count. That's why the moon changes. When you look up in the sky, it's not a bird or a plane, it's the moon up there. And it changes. It goes through different phases. Why? Because it's the time tracker, the timekeeper. And you had, among Issachar, you had those that kept track of the times, because they were the actual, ones that kept track of time. Let me try First Chronicles. They were the ones that kept track of time. First Chronicles 12:32. And of the children of Issachar, which were men that had understanding of the times. What times is it talking about? They were following the moon. They kept track of time. You didn't have calendars back then. They weren't keeping the Egyptian calendar or the, don't forget to bring the Sumerian calendar, and another, I got the updated version of the Babylonian calendar, brother. No. They kept track of time by the moon. They kept track of feasts by the moon. They kept track of months and weeks and years and all that by the moon. This is why the moon changes in different phases. The lights are different. The sun doesn't go through those changes, because the sun is the light that rules the day. The moon is what we follow in order for us to keep track of time. That's why the moon. Your every 29 and a half days you have what? A new moon, which is the refreshing or recycling of the moon. Why? Because once that month finishes, then you get the next month, and that's how you continue to keep track of time. You have hours, you have seconds, you have minutes, you have days, you have weeks, you have months, you have years, all tracked by the moon. To know what Israel ought to do, the heads of them were 200, and all their brethren were at their commandment. Right? Because once the certain moons would come up, they would blow the horn, let them know, okay, it's time for the congregation to get together. It's time for a feast day. It's time for the heads of the people to come. But you had actual watchers, and you also had different watches at night. Go to Lamentation chapter 2 and verse 19. Arise, cry out in the night, in the beginning of the watches. See? So you had a watch, and you had Issachar that were the night gazers, so to speak, the ones that kept track of the moon. That's why when you come, up to date, so-called Mexicans, I believe it was the Mayan calendar, they kept perfect track of time. In the year 2000, on that, because Esau was saying, well, it symbolizes the end of the world. Well, it really symbolized a change in rulership, a change in age, because it pretty much ushered in, what we see now, this so-called New World Order that they're establishing. And eventually, Yahushua is going to come and take these devils down. So going back, let's see what else we could glean off of this. They reckon by moons, and they offer their first fruits, which is a custom of Israel. They have a kind of feast of tabernacles, and that's why you had tents, because we were nomads at one point before the Lord established the land of Canaan. That's why Gad lives in what they call teepees, which are nothing more than extravagant tents. All right. They are said to lay their altar upon 12 stones. Wait a minute, it's 10 tribes. Why would they lay their altar on 12 stones? Did not Elijah do that? Took 12 stones and built the altar, so on and so forth. Their mourning a year, customs of women, with many other things that do not now occur. Right? Because eventually they lost certain things. And eventually when Esau conquered them, they put the children in boarding schools. Right? And what did they do? They stripped them of their language, their nationality. They stripped them of a lot of things. And when they did that, in process of time, they lost some of the phonetic sounds of the language. That's why some of the stuff is broken now, like broken Hebrew. Our Aborigines, an ancient Israelite relic. Reverend James S. Milligan writes from Argyle, New York, May 13, 1853, to a friend in Allegheny, Pennsylvania, if I said that right, having in my possession a very curious relic, or facsimile of a relic, of that ancient nation, the Israelites, I'm put. Right? Now, a facsimile is an exact duplicate or copy. So he had a copy of a particular relic. I take the liberty of addressing you in reference to it, in order that I and others may have the benefits of our opinion concerning it. That to which I refer is the facsimile in block 10 of a silver coin found last summer in Michigan, about 20 miles from Detroit, 2 feet under the surface of the earth. The coin is about the size of an American $half, not so great in circumference, but thicker. On one side is represented a censer with smoking incense, which goes back to the Israelites, with a Hebrew inscription, Jewish shekel. On the other, also is a Hebrew inscription, the Holy Jerusalem. What the hell is the Holy Jerusalem doing on a coin in America? With a representation of an olive tree or perhaps palm tree, which are symbols of Israel. The original piece found in possession of Dr. Duffield, Detroit, Is it not more than possible that this shekel of Israel was lost by Indians? Because you didn't have nobody else in this land. You had Gad, Reuben, Issachar, and the other tribes. And is it not another evidence that they are descendants of the 10 tribes? So the receipts are stacked yay high. The more they deny, the more the receipts confirm. And they're confirming that the Israelites, the so-called native aborigines, natives of this land of America, you call them Indian, you call them Latino, whatever, are in fact part of the tribes of the nation of Israel. Here follows the remarks of his friend. The relic is plainly Israelitish. The facsimile represents accurately the silver shekel of Israel. It was worth 50 cents of our money. Our silver $half is nearly a half ounce of void du poids. The shekel of Israel was known in Persia. It is mentioned in Xenophon's Anabasis. This relic having been discovered in Michigan, 20 miles west of Detroit, 2 feet underground. It must have been left there before the discovery of America by Columbus, because Columbus never stepped on the soils of America. You know, he did not step on the soils of America. You dig? Who could have left it there but one of the 10 tribes? If that be true, as Dr. Duffield supposes, it disposes of the theory of some learned men respecting the Hebrew alphabet, that it is Babylonian, brought back at the return of the captives under Cyrus, and that the letters are not those given by God to Moses at Horeb. It is the theory, however, of most modern Hebrew critics, as may be seen in the grammar Jacenians, from whom Professor Stewart of Andover Seminary derives it and gives it in his Hebrew grammar. Those critics maintain that the ancient Hebrew alphabet is now found in the Samaritan. I have long maintained that this is a false theory. The Hebrew letters found engraved in the top rock at Ticonderoga, the sheens found in Georgia, and the inscription on the shekel are evidence that those who were taken by Shalmaneser in the reign of Hoshea, at least 721 years before Yahushua, the Messiah, and of course before the carrying into Babylon, before the reign of Jeconiah, and the present form of Hebrew letter. Reverend J. Dodd, pastor of a congregation in western Pennsylvania and who takes an interest in the Hebrew language, tells me that there are inscriptions in the ruins of the city of Palenque in Central America that seem to confirm Dr. Boudinot's theory that in his star in the west, the compiler of this volume consulted a Jewish priest relating to those Hebrew words on the coin described above, and he gave the translation as we have given it. All right, and it goes on and on and on. Now, and some of this, like I said, I'm reading it for the first time with you brothers right now. They got ancient antiquities. You could read on. It's a seems like a pretty lengthy book, and I'm sure there's a whole lot in here. I've had this in my favorites for a long time, Tony, but I just haven't gone into it. Spirit had me look into it today, and Barakateh Hawabashim El Shai for that. And I pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. And as the title says, the more they deny, the more the receipts confirm. And I'm sure there's a whole lot here. And I also put this in the description box, the history of the American Indians by James Adair, and he goes into like the whole customs and the Hebrew language and comparing Hebrew, Gadite words with Hebrew words, and it's just the evidence is overwhelming. But you're still gonna have these fake, phony individuals that say that the so-called Latin tribes, Indian tribes, are not Israelites, they're heathens. But be it as it may, let the receipts speak, and let the what's the word I'm looking for? Let the doubters doubt. So with that, I pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. Till the next time I say Shalom.